Oh, I like it.
All right. Welcome to another episode of BlabberMouths 101. Very excited here to be hanging out with Victor Small Jr., Jorge Rodriguez, and Jerod Phillips. And today we're going to break down restorative justice. What is it? How to use it? Why to use it? What's going on with it, and why is it better than the model being set up in our schools now that deal with discipline and how we interact on a daily basis with our students? For that, real quick, my name is Justin Schleider. I'm a physical education, health, and technology integrationist in a preschool through sixth grade building, tiny little one-school building in South Jersey. Jorge, want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jorge Rodriguez. I'm a physical education teacher from Houston, Texas, and I am the producer of a podcast called the Global Phys Ed Voxcast, which we also, produce where we also publish the audio of the BlabberMouth podcast.
Very nice, and we appreciate you doing that. It gives us much more listens and views over there. All right, Mr. Jerod Phillips, want to tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
All right. Associate principal, first year associate principal at a middle school, grades 6 through 8 in Sussex County, Delaware. Actually live in Kent County, Delaware, so I got about maybe 35-minute commute. But right before I was an associate principal, I was a dean of students, which dealt with discipline for about 2 years. And this is when the district, my old district, we had got involved with restorative justice. And that's where I got my feet wet and really, fell in love with it. And prior to that, I was a math teacher before I left the classroom to be a dean of students.
Very nice. Good little background there, sir. And Victor, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Victor Small Jr. I have been teaching for about 10 years now, couple different sites. I am currently the tech coordinator at DCMP Alum Rock in beautiful east side of San Jose. I teach ninth grade English and 10th grade English, and whatever else they tell me to teach, I can teach it.
Fantastic. All right, let's dive right into it then. And this is cool because we have a school perspective, then we have a classroom perspective. So why don't we start with the broader perspective with Jerod. What exactly is restorative justice? We hear about it. For what I understand, it could be numerous things. What is it in your eyes?
In my eyes, it's a tool that I want to say there are a lot of scripts out there for how you can use it, but it's a tool where teachers and administrators they have at their fingertips to build a community of learners that are respectful for one another, respectful to the teachers, and it goes outside the classroom because the skills that come along with restorative justice can actually work in the community as well, because we want students to be able to reason with one another about their differences, where it doesn't have to always be a punitive consequence, where the students can see what harm they've done, how that harm affected others, and then they get a chance to, explain their side of why they may have reacted or chose the actions they took and how they can rectify it in the future. And restorative justice actually, I like it because it gives students a tool where when they're not even in school, if they can just use the tools that we're trying to give them, they can rethink some of the decisions that they're making out in the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. Outside connections, because we don't want to teach things that are just for school. I mean, because then when you get out of school, then that's useless. So if we can make those connections outside, that's huge. Victor, want to tell us a little bit, what are your thoughts about restorative justice? What is it?
It's a system. It's a really, really fine system of accountability that builds community and teaches people to be respectful of each other and the people that are around them. Because, look, if you do something that someone's not okay with, there's a way with this to talk it out. There's a way to repair any harm that you've done. And so you don't get you don't get a whole lot of things left unfinished. So I would have to say this is a system that preaches accountability and preaches community and healing harm, basically.
Very nice. Jorge, any thoughts before we move on?
No, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'm in the same boat I think you are. I know a little bit about restorative justice, and really, for me, when I first learned about it or heard the term restorative justice, it was kind of put into context in a criminal justice perspective. And so, I guess my question to you guys is, how did that transfer occur? Like, how did that transfer go from the criminal justice system into the educational system? And you know, when did that get started?
Anyone?
Okay.
I'll take it, at least from the classroom perspective. So for at least as far as I've been, you know, involved in schools, we've had this system that's pretty punitive, right? So a student does something or doesn't do something or, you know, misbehaves, and the idea is to get them out of there. You know, we have the referral system that sends kids to the office, and, you know, then we have suspensions and expulsions that, you know, kick kids out, that are essentially patterned after our criminal justice system, where, you know, if someone does something wrong, they can go to jail. If they keep doing something wrong, they can go to prison. So they're removed from their community, basically. What restorative justice is in a classroom is built around keeping kids from being removed. And if they have to be removed, there's a system of bringing them back that really works really well. And I'm sure Jerod will probably talk a little bit about bringing them back. But as far as my end is concerned, it's not punitive. If a student does something that's wrong, we can address it, and we can talk about it, and we can talk about what they should have done right there. And if they're doing something on a regular basis that's wrong, that's affecting the community, we can sit and, as a class, talk about these behaviors and talk about how they're affecting us. And those behaviors tend to stop when kids realize that their actions do have consequences, and the consequences are immediate, and you can see the consequences, and you can hear the people talking about, hey, I did this, or I felt this way because you did this. Then, you know, you really keep from having to kick kids out, and you keep from having to remove kids. And after a while, kids don't want to be removed, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jerod?
You know, from like the administrative level, just from the research I know about, restorative justice came into play because when they were looking at discipline and referral numbers, a lot of schools, they were noticing that maybe 75 to 80% of the referrals were coming from the same, anywhere from 10 to 35% of the population. So let's just say if you have a school of about 825 kids between 3 grades, out of 825 kids, only at the most between 30 and 40 of those students are the ones that are getting referrals. And out of those 30 or 40 students, their behaviors, if it continues, other kids see them getting away with it. So, you know, you have those students that are on the fence where there are kids that can go with the good kids, or they can go with the kids that's not making the great decisions. So those 30 and 40 can sway another 30 or 40 that without their behaviors may not have been swayed to the negative side. So it was a way of saying, hey, these 30 or 40 kids, what can we do to have them start thinking about what are their goals behind the negative behavior and that's affecting the community. And that was the way of trying to get the referral numbers down, because those are the students that it seems though may not have the best relationship with adults. So with restorative justice, it kind of is a script, kind of forces the adults that are in charge to try to build a relationship with those students, as well as get those students opening up to the classroom about, you know, why they may have came in and disrupted the class that day, and they may have something personal going on at home, and it was nothing directed towards them per se. So it gets them a chance to talk, and the other students are, okay, wow, he's really not, you know, coming here and doing this on purpose. He just doesn't have a coping mechanism to deal with outside influences that's, interrupting the environment. So as from a school administrative level, that's the reason why a lot of schools are getting on restorative justice. And it also gives teachers a tool where some that may not have a personality that's apt to open it up to a certain population because they may not know a lot about that population. Restorative justice and a lot of the trainings gives teachers a script that they can use, straight verbatim questions that they can use to help the students. And it gets them some experience with it as well for going forth in their career.
And Jerod, what does the research show on who's getting suspended and who's getting expelled out of school?
As far as the demographics?
Correct.
In schools where, low socioeconomical statuses, primarily minorities, and, students coming from low-income families.
Victor, anything to add on to that before we start breaking down how it's set up in your room?
Those numbers, I mean, if he gives us numbers, it would astound you. It's really it's scary. It's scary, the numbers. Yeah, I agree.
For everything I saw, it's so disproportionate on the students of color in our school versus how many times they're getting suspended and expelled that your eyebrows just shoot up. You really wonder what's going on and why is there the problem? And you go, well, is it because there's a ton of white teachers out there and they don't understand what's going on? And from what I understand with the restorative justice, it's a community action. It's not just with the school. You're bringing in all the stakeholders, whether it's parents, relatives, guardians, outside people. So I hope we delve into that a little more.
One thing I can add about the statistics, I can't really talk about the school I'm at now because all the data isn't out yet, but I can tell you for a fact, I want to say it 2014, there was a specific school near where I live at, and I saw the data with my own eyes. 69% of the student population at this particular school is African American, and out of the African American population, they made up 75% of the discipline referrals.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. They show, I mean, you see research study after study after study showing the same things. I mean, showing the bias of two kids doing the same behavior, a student of color getting written up for it, or the other one not. I mean, there's all kinds of issues there, which I think restorative justice will help alleviate on both sides there. So Vic, why don't you tell us a little bit about your classroom? How is this set up in your classroom? What does it look like? And tell me from like ground zero. So you had the idea, you learned it wherever you learned it, and you're ready. You want to do it in your classroom. What did you need to do to prep? And how did you start to implement it into your class?
All right, so there's a lot of things that go into this. I mean, you have to have the actual furniture to make this happen. I mean, you gotta have some chairs, or you don't really want to use the desk chair combination things. But if you got to, I mean, you can make it work, I guess, if you have to. From ground zero, what I first started off with is I had the desk chair combination. That's why I can tell you it doesn't work as well. And so what we had to do was we had to actually create a circle in the class in order for the circle to really work. And so I wasn't trained in the beginning. I just, we just sat in a circle and kind of stared at each other. We passed this, whatever it was, I think it was like a sock puppet around, filled with like beans or something. And so we're passing this thing around, and, it's something crazy that first time you do it, you're asking whatever weird question comes to mind. You got 5 kids that says something, and then after a while you get 10, and then you got 15, and then you can't shut them up. And that's kind of what happened. And the training that I got later on only improved what was going on, because then I moved into a different classroom and I got chairs. And that that made the difference. And so now in my class, I've got tables and chairs. I have the tables actually in like what would look like a square or a circle looking thing. And so my kids actually come in and they sit in a circle-ish sort of thing whenever they're working on whatever assignment they are. And so they can literally just look across the room at each other. And it's kind of a really cool community in that respect. But when we want to sit down in the circle because we want to get down to business, pull the chairs in, get in the circle, and then we start talking.
All right, so two things that come to mind. First, circles are huge from what I understand, right? Everything's about the circle. That way, nobody's out of place. Everyone can see each other. Second, when do you decide, all right, circle up, it's time for restorative justice time? When would this occur?
You should be doing them every day. I mean, if you can have them sit in a circle every day and check in with them every day, go for it.
All right.
I mean, if you can't, once, twice a week, whenever you can, whenever you can make it happen, you make it happen, because it could take an entire period if you let it. Or sometimes I'll circle up for a lot of different reasons. We'll circle up and we'll share out celebrations. We'll talk about we'll circle up after a break and talk about what sort of things happen. How was your break? Did you have a decent time? Some kids come back from break and they had something happen with their family, or they had a death in their family, and they have to unpack that. And if you sit that kid down and you expect that kid to learn your math lesson today, I'm sorry, but that kid's not learning math today unless you give them a chance to talk about it, if they need to, in space to actually deal with what just happened. We have bereavement leave as teachers. They don't. When you think about it, like they barely get sick days if we give them sick days. You get what I'm saying? I mean, kids got to come in with whatever they got. So giving them some space, that circle is going to give that to them.
So the circle is more about kind of building that community in a classroom, building that safety net. So if you need to talk about something big, then you give the kids the opportunity to talk about that big issue in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will circle up I'll teach lessons in it. Like I'll give them information about whatever project we're working on. We'll brainstorm in the circle. I mean, we'll do a lot of different things in the circle because, it's hard to not be focused when you're sitting in a circle staring at each other. And it's hard to not be focused on whatever the talking piece is that's going around.
Now, if there's an incident, let's say at the playground, in a class, wherever it is, you'll circle up and talk about that as well?
It depends. It really does depend. The good thing about circling so much and building that community is that you don't always have to make something a big thing if it doesn't have to be. So let's say an incident happened during lunch that only really affects one child. That kid might come and talk to you about it. And now you can actually give that kid the sort of mentorship that they may not get anywhere else, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as they're progressing through life, they're going to have questions. And, which adults you want answering those questions, or do you want kids answering those questions?
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah, hopefully educated people. All right, so we set up a system. We have the circles. You're in and out of them throughout the day, throughout the week. Everybody's comfortable. We're able to talk in the circle. We're good there. So what makes it restorative justice versus me just having a good pedagogical approach of inclusion, including everyone?
Well, okay, so once you've built that community, kids understand rules, what harms each other. The moment that someone does something wrong, you can actually deal with it in a meaningful way. So let's say you're in class. I had this before the break. I had a kid that was throwing paper balls in class and hit a couple kids, and it kind of went back and forth. And so what I can actually do now is I can pull them aside and I can say, okay, why did you do that? What was the point of that? And now we're having a conversation about their behavior. It's not get out of my class. It's, so why are you doing this? What do you hope to gain from this? Is that what you really want? Like, do you really want people seeing you do this? Do you want, like, you know, and then from there, we can actually go from, what did your actions actually do? Okay, so why might I have a problem with you doing X action in the room? And this is really a serious conversation I had with a kid. Why would I have a problem with that? And at first they'll think, well, I'm not doing my work. Okay, yeah, you're not doing your work, but what else is happening? And they actually have to sit there and think about, oh, because I did that, this happened. Yeah, and I can't. That's not good in the room, is it? He said, no. That's not good for the community. No, it's not good for the community. And so then you can work on, okay, so how do you make this better? You've wronged. How do you make it better? And so for there, you can actually start talking about, okay, so you got them off track. You did this in class. What do you think you should do? The kid goes, well, I probably should apologize, and I probably shouldn't do it again. And those are real conversations you can have. And then if you want to talk about it with the entire group, you can sit us in a circle and say, and let him actually have a chance to atone for his actions. And the kids will support him, and they'll pick him up, and then you'll go right back to it, and it strengthens.
All right, Jerod, let's hear a little more from the bigger perspective out there. So we heard what Victor does in his classroom, being former dean of students and assistant principal. What does it look like on your end?
Okay, on my end, I'm gonna, paint a picture of something common that we see a lot at the secondary level. And I'm pretty sure once I get talking, Victor probably will be over there shaking his head because he probably heard some of these stories at the secondary level. But let's just say, come in Monday morning, always got a duty, so I'm always doing a traffic duty. One of the secretaries may give me a call on the walkie stating that when you get in, Mr. Phillips, when you get done with traffic duty, when you get in, there's a parent want to speak with you. I come in, it may be a parent there with their daughter, parent showing me some screenshots of, her daughter receiving some, nasty messages or some possible threats. And maybe even her daughter, because mainly with girls, I'm use this scenario, going back and forth over the weekend. And it's actually some situation where the cops actually could have been called and they're worried about their child's safety. So from the administrative level, we definitely want to, not let anything happen in the hallways or in the classroom that, puts teachers in harm's way and disrupts their learning environment. So I take as much information from that parent as possible, and I let them know I need their child to stay with me. And I try to gather, all the names possible that need to be talked to. And then what I'll do is I kind of like hide that child, like in one of our other rooms. And what I'll do is I'll, call down some of the other girls that may be involved and just say, it was brought to my attention that over this weekend, he was involved in some drama, some beef over Instagram. You want to tell me about that? And then they may start opening up a little bit. They may even come out with and say, Mr. Phillips, well, can I show you my phone? I know I'm not supposed to have it on, but can I show you what I have? And then they may show me, part of the messages. And then what they may have may be stuff that the other child was saying that the child had cut off. So then we have where the child is not being quite truthful with the parent. So once we go through all that, then I'll just straight up tell the students, we're going to all get together. You have a problem with that because we want to keep all you girls here today. But if something's going to happen in this building, we may need to create a degree of separation, and everybody may need to take the day off. Most of them are going to say no, because most of the time with some of the other students that may just be kind of like bystanders, just getting involved in themselves, I don't call the parents till after the fact because I want students to feel comfortable that they can come to me and it's not always going to be, oh, we're calling home to get them in trouble. So then we'll get all the students in the room, and and the students the only person that ever know where the information came from will be the child that reported it or the parent that reported it. Because when we get the students all together in a circle, and a lot of times it's me and another assistant principal or me and the guidance counselor I'm paired up with. And sometimes if it's even serious because violence was threatened or acts of violence were made, accusations of what may have happened, I may even get the school resource officer because he even has a restorative mindset and the students know he's not there to be arrested, and that's not his goal. So sometimes adults like that will be in the circle with me, and we'll have 3, 4, 5 girls involved. And sometimes if there's a teacher that may knew a little something, has a good relationship with some of the students, I'll see if I can, have a para or her co-teacher cover that class where she sits in. So that way, that student that may always, feel like they're the ones always in trouble, but they do have that one go-to teacher. They seem like they got a support system inside the circle that's like somebody that's not inside the circle is always going to look at them like they're the ones doing it. And I just start to circle off saying the reason why we're here is it was brought to my attention that some things were going on over this weekend. The goal is for everybody to stay in school and be able to get their education. But in order for us to do that, I got to make sure I got to promise all your parents I can keep you safe. That's the goal here. So we're going to talk about what happened. And what I usually do is I usually start with the child that wasn't brought in by the parents to get their take on things. And they'll usually open up. We go around the circle. And then most of the times I only have to talk again, because once they get talking, one of the girls may say, you know what, that's not accurate, because so-and-so told me this. And then they come to find out it's those girls really never had a problem. It's somebody trying to get them going. So all those things open up. And then sometimes when those other names come up, once the circle is over, we inform them, we know that so-and-so name was brought up as the instigator, but we're going to talk to them individually because we feel as though we've repaired what happened here. We just have to deal with that child individually when it comes to instigation, have a conversation. And a lot of times that conversation won't even come through me, that it go through with the guidance counselor or one of the other APs that may not know about the whole situation, that they can just say, this was brought to my attention. It's a non-threatening manner. And then I can make a phone call to the parent, letting them know this is what we did to rectify the problem. We put these parameters in place. Our end result always is we always have to go in with Delaware, with the alleged bullying, because the parent even brought up the word bullying. I still go in and enter it as alleged. But with situations like this where the students can rectify it, I don't substantiate it, because I feel as though we need the students to be able to, talk about it. Then they know later on that we have a resource and an advocate in our AP and our guidance counselor and his teacher, whereas they know that they can get to one of us. And sometimes the parents, we never have to contact the parents again, because the students take it upon themselves to say, hey, Mr. Phillips, these things were going on over the weekend. I don't, I've been doing good. I don't want to get spent. I don't want to get in trouble. Can we possibly call so-and-so down here so I can talk? I've had students come in and say, can we call so-and-so and this person down so that we can talk and try to hash this out? So from the admin level, always try to look at, one, how can I support my teacher where they're not putting out fires in the classroom, because some of those students may have a course together. If they have a 3rd or 4th period course together, I need to make sure that that circle happens first thing in the morning. And sometimes if the student says, I'm not going to do anything, but I think I need some space from him or her, I just don't allow that student to go to that class. I have the teacher send some work down, because the end goal, the end result is always to try to keep the child in school. That's the end result. And then that shows teachers as well that, we're trying to get them to do restorative justice. We're modeling what we want teachers to do, because that's the worst thing as a leader is, throwing out things that you want teachers to do. Have you tried this with a student? Have you tried that with a student? And we're not even trying it. So if a referral ever has to come, at least we know that we've tried everything that we can from the classroom level and the administrative level before we had to put something punitive in place.
Now, one of the criticisms of restorative justice that I ran across is that sometimes people think that there's no consequences then, that these students are getting in trouble or doing things to disrupt or whatever, and there's no consequences. Now, obviously, we have been given out consequences that haven't changed behaviors, so that doesn't seem to be working. So where's the consequences? Where's the things coming in where it's going to help them change their behavior? Victor, you seem to have something you want to say here.
Let's let's be real about consequences here. In a punitive system that we have, exactly what is the consequence? I did something wrong, so I get to go home. I get to go where I wanted to be in the first place. Thank you. I'll do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and I'll keep doing it because that's not a consequence. That's nothing bad. I don't have to actually deal with it. I don't have to answer for my behavior. I don't have to atone for it. I might not even have to think about it while I'm in my room. Like, while I'm in my room, I could just put on headphones and just listen to music the entire time. That's not a consequence. What we actually get is real consequence because you have to actually repair the harm. And the consequence is going to be dependent on the people that were harmed. And so it actually makes sense and actually tends to work a little bit better because when you tell a kid, you did this thing wrong, and now you got to go sit in this room. Some of them were the IS rooms. They'll take it. But if you tell the kid, okay, so you did something wrong, now you have to make up for it, and now it can be something like I don't know, you did some graffiti. Now you gotta actually clean the graffiti off. And there's two things. It means that we don't have to pay for someone to clean the graffiti off, and now you're going to clean the graffiti off. You're going to actually right the wrong that you made, which is actually what I would believe is the definition of accountability. But there's tons of other things that you can do. I mean, if a student is a student to do the homework, well, you can actually find out the reason behind what it was that made them do whatever action it was. So as Jerod was saying earlier, the fight thing, maybe they don't have anything against each other, but they're pumped up into it. You can actually find it out and prevent future fights from happening. The accountability is one that you don't have to see a whole lot because you don't get a whole lot of kids doing a whole lot of wrong things with the system. The fact of the matter is that when everyone gets along really well, we all tend to treat each other pretty nice, and we all tend to do the right thing for the most part. So then you don't even really have to worry about it. But if you do, the system is there for it.
One thing I want to add with what Victor was saying. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One thing I want to add what Victor was saying. That is so true because I have a student that I'm thinking of clearing my mind right now. If I was because we return from break tomorrow, if I was to go in tomorrow and a situation happened where she was bullying someone over the break and she threatened to do something to them tomorrow, and I called her in and I said, this is what I got an email on last night. We're going to talk about this. She has such a problem with communicating and trying to repair harm. She'll say, I don't want to do that. Just give me the 3 days out. Just give me the 3 days out. I don't want to discuss that. That a lot of young people, they have no communication at home. It's just impulsive actions to everything. And the fact that somebody about to have them, nope, I'm not sending you home, but we're gonna talk about this. You're gonna have to face the people that you sent all these messages to. She ain't gonna want to do that. She'd rather me suspend her out for the rest of the week.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's yeah.
Now, and that was kind of my next question is, it seems like this approach, it makes it more personal and it doesn't come like from the top down. It makes it like you have to face the people that you hurt and you have to make it right. What kind of pushback do you have, I guess, at a teacher level? What kind of pushback do you have from the kids that are used to a system that just hands out punishment? They take the punishment, they take their licks, and then they just keep on going. And then from an administrative level, what kind of pushback do you get from the teachers?
Jerod, you want to start first?
Yeah. From the administrative level, it's all about, from day one, about building relationships and supporting the teachers. For example, if a teacher calls and says, this kid is in here just cuss me out, I'm not going to write them up, but they need to go. if I get that child, so we already know, okay, the child may not return to your classroom, and she's fine with that. She's not asking for anything else other than that. She just asking for, I really can't deal with him right now. I'll try to work on repairing the harm tomorrow. I just need him out of my classroom right now. I'm willing to do, if that teacher is willing to sit down with that child the next day and try to repair that situation, I'll make sure that the students see that, okay, you cuss the teacher out, you're out of that classroom. Then they're not looking up saying, oh, he's back in 10 minutes. It's all about give and take from the administrative level. And I think a lot of administrators miss the boat with that. The teachers want to feel as though, okay, if we're 5 minutes in the class, a kid just came in and just cussed me out, and it's a test day, and I'm trying to get everything going, and I really don't have the time for the circle, and I call Mr. Phillips, and the kid's removed, and the kid doesn't come back, I'm not going to write the referral, but tomorrow we're going to have to address this. And the kids see that, the other kids in the classroom see that that student is not returning to that particular classroom. That helps the teacher feel supported. And the teacher still has some power because the student still has to face the music the next day. And the teacher, was able to run their classroom and not the students see like, oh, this school's a joke. He just cussed Miss So-and-so out and he's right back. So it's a catch-22 in every situation. I think administrators have to think on their feet on how can I try to help repair the harm and not damage the working relationship where the teachers think as though we're not supporting.
And really, it seems like in that case, you want the offender, the kid who did that injustice, to figure out a way so that doesn't happen again, rather than with a punitive punishment. It could happen. He can hide the action for a while, but then it's going to come out later. Here, it seems like they're really reflecting on their actions and seeing how they can stay out of that kind of trouble again. Exactly.
And then I'll add to that. From one thing I found from my 2 years of dean of students and then my year, half a year as associate principal, mainly not in the school I'm in now, but in my prior school as dean of students. Whereas there's this thing of teachers already know that if a particular student gets wrote up so many times, they're going to have to go somewhere, whether it's alternative or something of that nature. And I used to always just try to, because as a dean of students, it was still a teacher unit, so I was still their colleague. I wasn't their supervisor. And I would used to just try to, talk with them saying, this is like a game of chess, not checkers. And what I meant by that is there are truly students that are walking the halls of schools that probably don't belong in school due to the criminal activity they may be involved in that poses harm to the school. But they may not be in school doing it, but the teachers are knowing the things that they're doing in the community. So it's like, so if I can do every little thing to write them up here, we can get them going. Whereas that's a checkers game. What I found out is those students that truly are going to get kicked out of school, they're truly going to commit a crime or do something in the community. Whereas most code of conducts, I know here in Delaware that if you get arrested outside, an attorney general report gets sent to the superintendent, and the student and parent have to meet before the superintendent. But it's like, why try to overdo it if you already know that this student's lifestyle may lead them down this road? Inevitably, we're doing everything we can. And even at the end of the day, if that student has to go to alternative school, at least they know that, that school did try everything they could. And I've had students come back from alternative settings saying, I'm not going back no more. Everything y'all try to show me here, I didn't want to listen. And when I got there, I saw that, wow, there's kids over there that's really doing things like, carrying guns in the community or doing this and that. I don't want to be a part of that. So I just try to, let the teachers know we don't want to just write up to try to get students out there, because that's not the goal. We gotta try to work with them and give them some skills to conduct themselves out in the community. Because let's just be honest, certain students, if we write them out and get 20 of them out of school, if they're not in alternative school and they're sitting home waiting to get into alternative school, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be running around committing crimes, possibly breaking into our homes while we're at work. So it's always trying to think of things of how can we keep them here and give them the tools to prevent them from, being a product of their environment.
All right, Vic. Let's go over now the script. So if I'm a teacher, I got the idea. I understand restorative justice. I want to do it. So a kid was in my class and they hit another kid, or there were some things going on, whatever it is, and I want to deal with it in my class, especially in the phys ed world. We get a lot of that. This kid touched me, whatever, or this kid did that, or well, all kinds of issues coming up that I'm not going to write them up. I don't want to send them out. I don't want to do the whole thing, but it definitely needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
What is the script? What would I be looking at? Let's say if it was two kids right now. One kid harmed another kid, did an injustice in some manner. The one kid came up to me and said, hey, this is what happened. What does the script look like? What am I going to be doing here?
Okay, so the first thing, it totally depends on the action, right? When you community build, when you community build for, like, let's say a week and a half, 2 weeks, kids just don't do that sort of. But in the event that it does happen, because it might, in the event that it does happen, the first thing that I ask the kid that started it or whatever is, what happened? And then they start talking. Well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? Get them to explain their thinking behind each of their actions. Once you get them to explain their thinking, because they'll do it. They'll explain what they were thinking. They'll explain their side of it. So then you start figuring out where they went wrong. So let's say it's a situation where, this kid hit the other kid because of, I don't know, they took his cell phone, or, his hiding his cell phone. The kid's going to explain that. Well, he took my cell phone. I didn't have it, And so then you can go, okay, all right. So now we can fix this. We can fix this. You're really trying to find out the information behind it so you can counsel the kid on the next time, while explaining to them, okay, so here's what you did wrong. I think you now see what you did wrong. Here's what I need you to do to repair this. And here's what you do next time.
How do you come up with the repair? Or how does the kid come up with the repair? What does that look like?
Depends on the harm. It really does. It depends on the harm. It also depends on the other party. If it's something where the other person is harmed and you're having the circle about it, you can literally ask the kid. So, sometimes I meet with the kids before we have that sort of circle, and I ask the kid that was harmed, what do you need in order to feel better about the situation? What do you need to bring this back around? And I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, all they really want is an apology. 9 times out of 10. That's all they want is an apology. They're just an honest apology. And if you've done the work of building a community to where those two kids actually are friends and or get along to some extent, that other kid will apologize generally. 9 times out of 10. And now you're done. And no one got suspended. No one got kicked out of the class. Now you can move right back on to what you were doing.
Nice. Jorge, any thoughts? Because we deal with this pettiness all the time of just the minor stuff that's not major, but just enough that I would really hope that the kids could take some of this into their own.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just one of the things that's really cool to begin with, if you know you're going to do circles and you know you want to implement it in, there are different circles that you can get to get kids to talk about what bugs them. Because once that's out in the open and you're team building, kids remember what bug other kids, and they tend to stay away from it. Because when we really think about it, at that age, we're not trying, like when we're in school, you're not trying to make a whole lot of waves. You're trying to get through your life. You're trying to get through the day. You're just trying to get through most of the time. You're dealing with whatever you're dealing with, right? You're not trying to cause any ripples. You're not trying to get into a fight. You didn't want that today. You didn't want to get kicked out of class today. Probably. You didn't want to get suspended today, probably. You just wanted to get through the day. And so when we give them that a way to get through the day, that this gets you, you know, life is pretty good.
So you know, it's interesting also, and it kind of strikes me with this restorative justice practice is, you know, when we talk about like the neuroscience of what we do in physical education and in education in general, you know, a lot of times these kids come to us with these problems and they have a really high emotional state. And it seems like this, instead of adding to that emotional state by including a punishment with that, it gives them a chance to get back to a more rational state where their amygdala isn't going crazy and their cortisol levels aren't going crazy, and they can get back to the learning at hand rather than just focusing on that one problem and just kind of putting their blinders on and saying, you know, this is the defining moment of the day and everything else is gone.
Did you ever hear about them doing yoga in restorative justice? There was an article I came across where if you got referred, you automatically went to a yoga room, and there was like a 10-minute yoga thing that you did. And that, I think that goes back to what you were talking about being able to calm yourself and get down from that emotional fight or flight state that we feel.
Yeah, I saw something about mindfulness and like the discipline practice in one school where they changed it up to do mindfulness instead of you know, punishing the kids, and it had a huge you know, it changed the kids' entire outlook on how things were, and their rates of discipline problems went way down.
I would believe it. I would believe it. Under the punitive system, I found myself, what's it called? I found myself escalating problems a lot more than I felt that I was disescalating. And with this system, all I really do is disescalate. So, you know, I can just tell that you're going through something, kid, right now. You need a minute. Mm-hmm. You need a minute. Like, this behavior that you're giving me has nothing to do with me. It has something to do with something else that's going on, and you need a minute. So I'm going to give you a minute. And if that means, I can understand it being like, if you need 10 minutes to go and stretch and meditate or think about what just happened, you know, you'll be better for it. And you'll probably be able to come back and go, oh, yeah, I did mess up. I'm sorry, Mr. Small. I didn't mean to do that. I can totally.
And it seems like the teacher or the administrator a lot of times takes like a more of like a mediator role in these circles rather than saying, you know, this is what you did wrong, this is what you did, this is what you should have done, and so on and so forth. You take like a role as a mediator. Is that right?
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Because you want a lot of the solutions and ways of to repair the harm to come from the kids, because then we get them to a point down the road where they may not even need us. They may be able to talk with that student one-on-one or another student one-on-one if another situation comes up, because they've been through some restorative circles with teachers and administrators, so they have some tools in their tool bag to use where they don't have to rely on the adults for every negative situation.
So with that in mind, what would you say are some common restorative practices that teachers use or administrators use either in the classroom or in the school system?
A lot of times, kind of go back to what Victor was saying earlier, a lot of teachers try to incorporate just the circles with the curriculum. Like in the ALA classroom, they have a circle in there going around. They may do the warm up in a circle and pass a talking piece around, and each person says out their answer just to get the kids acclimated to a circle, so that when they ever need to use them again for a negative situation that may occur in the classroom, the students already have the ground rules and the expectations of how to conduct themselves when doing the circles. And a lot of times, it's just restorative justice is just a different mindset and looking at things through a different lens, and having the teacher step back saying, how can I try to help the students fix this situation without, me going home stressed out over this one thing or this one situation stressing me out and it negatively impacting the way I teach the rest of my 2 or 3 classes for the remainder of the day. So it's just a different mindset, different language. When you're dealing with students, open-ended statements where when you're discussing a situation with the student, the way you're phrasing the question always lends itself to the student being able to explain themselves beyond yes or no.
All right, so let's go to the community aspect here. When or how do we get outside stakeholders coming in, whether it's parents, whether it's police, whether it's businesses? Does that ever happen? And how does that part, how do the outside stakeholders of the immediate administration, teachers, and students, how do they get involved? Where do they fall in the restorative justice practice?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I know with my school, one way is I'm in charge of the after-school program. So one club that we have starting this month is it's a girls circle through an outside mentoring program. And they're going to be coming in about twice a month. She came in, recruited some students. We'll have about maybe 15 to 20 girls. And she'll be meeting with them after school about twice a month minimum for about an hour and 15 minutes. And the group is called Girl Circle. So she's going to talk about a lot of issues that, teenage girls go through, as well as, career aspirations. So she's actually going to be circling the girls up. So that's going to be a great tool going forward with her, with outside stakeholders and resources. A lot of times with parents, it's good to get them involved when you have parents that are in any situation, they just want punitive action immediately. Just trying to get them acclimated to, bringing them inside of the circle and getting them acclimated to our culture and our community, how we do business, because it may come a time when their student may be on the end of having to receive that punitive, and then they're trying to figure out a way how they can try to get their student out of it. So just trying to bring them in, letting them know that it's not about the students just getting away with what they want to get away with, but them actually saying that we're taking the welfare of each child in mind when we're trying to deal with situations, including how we work with their child, that we are trying to keep all kids safe, but we're also trying to give them tools going forth in life and in school where they can use to deal with anything negative that comes up in their life throughout the course of the day, where the parents can actually do what they do during the day, work or be a stay-at-home mom, and don't have to worry about their child calling them all the time for everything, and the parent have to try to repair everything, giving them tools that they can help repair some of the situations that they get themselves involved in.
Huge.
The conversation just looks different and sounds different that I have with parents. I mean, it's just a completely different conversation. It's not your kid did this. This is what happened. And what they said, and this is how they responded, and here's what they're going to do. And now it's not like parents getting constant negative things told. It's actually, you're giving them the full story, and you're explaining to them what sort of responsible action their kid took for their actions on their own in some cases. It's pretty powerful, and the kids are generally fine with doing it, and they're happy to know that it's just not nothing but negative going home. It's the full story, basically.
Yeah, I think everybody wants the full story heard, whether it's my wife or whether it's me growing up. There was always something, but this one did that, or this did the other thing. And like you said, you do want to know the whole story. Or hey, any follow-up questions before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I mean, it sounds great, and it's definitely something that I love the relationship building aspect of restorative justice, and I love the community building aspect of restorative justice, and I feel like I've been going that way in my teaching, using cooperative learning in my class and using TGFU and things like that, and this is just another part that's going to, I think, make my class more of a community and have my kids more, looking out for each other rather than focusing on these are the rules and you have to set by these rules every day out of the week, no matter how you feel, no matter what's going on in your life. These are the rules, and sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So I really like this concept, and it's something that I'm definitely going to look into more.
Vic, closing thoughts?
I think we forget. You just knew. I think we sometimes forget as educators what it was really like for us as students when we were going through life as students. We didn't want to be talked down to. We didn't want to be talked to like we're idiots. We knew that we had days. It's just going to be a bad day. And you accept it as a student, I would imagine. I think what this does is it bridges the gap. And it doesn't make me have to be an authoritative figure. Or sorry, that's not the word. It doesn't make me have to be a general. I don't have to, walk around and be the scary human being. Because realistically, are we going to learn from the scary one, or are we going to learn from the one we actually like and get along with and know about and know intricate things about and are willing and comfortable enough to talk to about whatever issue is going on in our lives? Because if they're willing to tell me about their boyfriend and girlfriend, they're also willing to ask me some questions about this essay that they're working on. They're probably not sitting in the corner quiet because they can actually feel like they can talk to me. And that creates a completely different paradigm in my classroom. Now I don't have to check on you. You're going to come and find me. You're going to ask me for help if I'm not there. And you're really comfortable with doing that because we talk on a regular basis.
Yeah, anything that can increase communication and relationships is good in my book. Jerod, final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank you and Jorge for this opportunity, and I tip my hat off to all physical education and science teachers, because you guys have the classrooms where when it comes to putting 20 to 30 kids together, you guys have the most challenges of things that could go wrong.
Yeah, you ain't kidding about that. There are many things that could.
Yes, like my physical education teachers, I love them to death. Like when they call or if they write a referral, which is very few, I know it is something very legitimate because they're real good about calling. Why'd you trip that kid? He was over there doing this. Okay, what'd you give him? That everybody saw me fall. Then I saw trip. So they get them talking. Kind of, and you and Jorge probably do a lot of that already and just really don't even realize it because just ingrained in your culture. But they do a lot of, running interference to stop kids from, actually hurting themselves in the physical education classroom with all the different sports and activities. So I tip my hat off to physical education teachers. I really do.
Thank you. Yeah, I can tell you, in my, 10 years of teaching, I think I sent out one kid, maybe two that I could think of. So yeah, a lot of this I'm going to do already, and I have been doing. The piece that I really want to focus on is the students talking to each other and saying, okay, this is what I did, this is why I did it. The other person saying this is how it felt or whatever. And then having the person who was the aggressor or did the transgression do that restorative part. Because the consequence for me sitting out, that's not good enough. I mean, because it's counterintuitive to what I want. I want them moving. Now you're sitting out. So now you not only did you mess that kid up, now you're not doing what I want you to do. So that's a problem. And that's the part where I really want to work on for that. Jorge, last thoughts?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's going to be a big change that I'm going to try to implement, starting this new year. And I think Victor was saying that sometimes it's just as easy as an apology. Like they just have to go to that person that they may be hurt or maybe tripped and say, hey, look, I'm sorry, explain themselves, and then go from there. Because Mike Casala, the author of the Kinesthetic Classroom, who's been on the podcast before, he always likes to say that every action has a purpose, and restorative justice, I think, really looks into what that purpose is, rather than just implementing that punitive damage or that punitive consequence, and then going from there. And there was no apology, there was no figuring out what the purpose of that action was. And this, I think, really emphasizes that notion of it. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'm going to look into implementing in my class as well.
I will listen. I would love to thank Jerod and Victor for your time. I really appreciate on the night before going back for us, setting aside an hour to talk about this. I will be putting this link in all our groups, so the other people, I know they were excited about this. And this is step one in my restorative justice journey. So we'd like to thank both of you. Appreciate it. And Jorge, always love you coming along for the ride. And I can't wait to hear this on BlabberMouths and the Voxcast. So appreciate all your time, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's a blast.